Hope you can see the screen. So we are discussing Anatta Lakkhana Sutta these days, and this is a very interesting sutta. As you can remember that this sutta Buddha has preached to the 5 ascetics in order for them to attain arahantship, and they were already sotapanna and they were already nobles, and then Buddha teach this the teaching on the non-self in order for them to attain arahantship. So in that sense, this is a somewhat deeper teaching, in the sense that the Buddha's this Anatta Lakkhana, the characteristics of the non-self. So Buddha is explaining here. Here actually Buddha takes a certain aspect, and typically Anatta, the non-self, sometimes explains with 5 aspects. Those are Anatta, the non-self, and then Sunyata, the emptiness, then Parato, which has no, very much like belongs to someone else, belongs to others, not belongs to us. Rittato, there is no inner core. Likewise, there are many meanings to the Anatta, many different perspectives to the Anatta. And now here Buddha talks related to the sort of keeping the impossibility of keeping these 5 aggregates according to our wish. So he goes elaborating one by one. So if we consider the form aggregate, so form aggregate, say for example our body does not behave as we like. Our body gets sick, it gets old, and it may even die. So likewise this body doesn't behave as we wish. So in case if it is belong to us, if it is really ourself, if it is under our complete control, then we should be able to stop it. We should be able to control it as we like. Say if it is get sick, then we should be able to quickly remove that sickness, eliminate that sickness, and recover from the sickness through our wish. But it is not behaving like that. Similarly, suppose if we get old, so if we want to become young again, then if the body behaves as we like, behaves as we wish, then we should be able to change our body back to the young age. So it doesn't behave like that. So the body basically has its own kind of a behavior, its own kind of agenda. It depends on various causes and conditions. According to those causes and conditions, this body behaves. So we have to recognize this nature. We have to, in a way, accept this nature. But typically we have the wrong notion, thinking that this body belongs to me and it is myself and I can control it as I like. Say for example, if I have a car, then if it is my car, then I should be able to use it as I like. It is not someone else's car. So that is why I call it as my car. So since it is my car, so I can change its color, I can decorate it if I want, then I can use it to travel to any place, and if necessary I can sell it. Likewise, I can do as I like because it belongs to me, because it is my car. So if we consider this body also belongs to me, also change as I like, then we can logically even think whether we can do that kind of say control as we did to our car. So this body belongs to me, then why can't I become somewhat strong? Why can't I make this body beautiful? Why can't I make this body really healthy? So we can see even logically, so we can't do like that. So it depends on various causes and conditions, and those causes and conditions are also not under our control. So when they change, this body also get affected. Say for example, when climate change, this body also change. If the environment is quite heated, then body also get sweating and all the problems are there. If it is really cold, then it starts to chill and all the problems are there. And again, there are sometimes various foods that we have to eat in order to sustain the body, to nourish the body. And sometimes if they get sort of imbalance or some sort of food poisoning happens, then again the body becomes sick. And sometimes people do various mistakes. So if we misuse the body, again this body gets sick. And again sometimes certain karma also affects the body. So it can, we can't actually recognize when the karma happens, but karma is also another cause. We can't recognize, okay, this happened because of wrong food, this happened because of wrong climate, or maybe because of wrong thinking. But if this is not the cause, it can be even the karma. Karma also can have an impact on this body. So likewise, due to various causes, this body change. So if it is belonging to us, if it is under our control, if it is myself, then I should be able to change everything. But it is not so. So likewise, Buddha makes a kind of an argument here. Since it does not belong to me, since it is not self, that is why it is getting sick. That is why it is going to change. That is why it is aging, decaying, and ultimately die. So similarly, Buddha explained about the Vedana, feelings, that feelings are also not self. So different feelings are there. Sometimes pleasurable feelings, sometimes painful feelings, sometimes equanimous feelings. So different feelings are there. So none of them belongs to us. They also change. So even though we like pleasurable feelings, we can't keep them for a long time. So they have their own time span, and they come, they arise due to various causes, and then they simply leave. And we can't hold them, we can't keep them, even though we like them. Similarly, if there are painful feelings, and we don't like them, they still sometimes stay for a while. We wish that let them quickly disappear, but still they continue. And sometimes equanimous feelings. So those equanimous feelings, sometimes we feel like bored and we want to change them to pleasurable feelings. But they don't change as we like. So we maybe intentionally try this and that to change those boring equanimous feelings. Sometimes we may succeed, but sometimes not. And suppose we have a pleasurable feeling, so it may not stay as we desire, but it may disappear. Then again and again we have to find various ways and means to re-arise this. So likewise, these feelings have their own nature, have their own behavior, and therefore Buddha logically mentioned here that these feelings are also not worthy of considering as mine, not worthy of considering as me or mine or myself. And we discussed that as well. And now we can move forward to the other part. So that is the sanya, or the perceptions. So perceptions also have the same nature, where Buddha mentioned sanya bhikkhave anatta. So perceptions, various signs, marks, memories that we have, all are also impermanent. So sometimes if we consider in a very rough manner, so certain things we can remember for a while and then we simply forget them. And certain signs stored in the mind for a while, but they also change. They sometimes deform. And there may be various words that we are storing in our mind. Sometimes we can't remember them. So the sanya, the perceptions, are the ones that we are using to recognize various things. So for example, if we are recognizing our children, our parents, say our colleagues, so we are having some sort of marks onto those people. So he is short, he is long, he is fat, he is thin, he is fair. So likewise, various points are there, various marks are there. So we knowingly or unknowingly, so we are storing those marks in our mind. So using which we are able to distinguish among others, okay, this is my son, this is my father, this is my brother, this is my mother, so this is my sister, this is my friend. So likewise, we are able to recognize them using our pre-stored signs. So likewise, we have the signs related to the eye. So those are the sights. Related to sights, we have various signs. Similarly, related to, say, sounds, we have various signs. Say, for example, we can easily recognize, say, when a dog barks, we can properly recognize that, okay, this is a dog's bark. This is not a cow's sound, but this is a dog's bark. Or this is a sound of a singer. Okay, this is a music or song sung by a particular singer. So we have those minor distinguishing marks so that even we can recognize using a sound. Okay, this particular song has sung by this particular singer. So all these minor differences we can record or we can memorize, and using them, so we are able to distinguish, we are able to recognize various sounds. So similarly, various smells we can recognize, various tastes we can recognize. Say, for example, we can distinguish a tasty food from a bitter food. We have some kind of a memory when we are feeling, even if our eyes are closed, if someone is keeping a salt on our tongue, so we can easily recognize, okay, this is salty. So likewise, many different tastes have their own nature, own characteristics, so we can recognize them. So various sensations, tactile sensations, those also have their distinct characteristics, various signs, marks, so using which we can actually recognize. So likewise, Buddha expand this sanya, perception, to all the 6 senses. Those are the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the mind. So whenever a lustful thought comes to the mind, we can recognize that this is a lustful thought. It has a different taste. When an angry thought comes to the mind, we can easily recognize this as an angry thought because it has its own characteristics. Lust and anger are different, so they have their own differences. So we can recognize. So all these actually have their own signs, marks, and therefore it's a kind of a wide spectrum. When we are recognizing various views, we use those signs available to the sights. When we are hearing various sounds, we are using those kind of signs. When we are recognizing various smells, odors, we are using those various signs. So likewise, when we are using our faculties, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the mind, so we are using those corresponding stored signs, using which we do this recognition. So Buddha mentioned, so these recognitions are impermanent. So using these recognitions, actually our mind gets sometimes conditioned. Our mind starts to even wrongly perceive. So we sometimes, when we are recognizing, we have the notion of permanence. Say when we are recognizing our child, our mother, our father, our teacher, our brother, sister, friend. So we for a moment, we consider their picture, his or her picture, as permanent. So he's looked like this, he's tall, he's short. So we consider that as a permanent thing, permanent nature, permanent view. So all these recognitions, therefore, have the notion of permanence. Similarly, when we are recognizing, we sometimes expect happiness by being with my children, by being with my, say, wife, husband, say, colleague, my friend, I can be happy. So by buying various other things, I can be happy. By eating various things, I can be happy. So we always are sort of driving towards the pleasures, expecting happiness from all these external phenomena. Similarly, we consider that all these external phenomena and even the internal phenomena have some essence, have some kind of a core, have something valuable. So therefore, we consider them as worthy of holding, worthy of attaching, worthy of possessing, worthy of belonging. Consider them as me or mine. And we consider everything is wonderful. Everywhere, whatever we see is beautiful. So this kind of a perversion is there when we are using our faculties. When we are watching, hearing, sensing, so whenever we are using these faculties, we are subjected to this sort of a perversion. So everywhere, therefore, we get the notion of permanence, notion of satisfaction, notion of self, and notion of beauty. But on the other hand, if we do, say, vipassana, if we do some close analysis, if we keep our attention again and again to all these various phenomena, what we have discussed, there we can recognize all these phenomena have the nature to come and go, have the nature to arise and pass away. They are very transient, they are very inconstant. So how come these inconstant phenomena could provide us lasting happiness? So it may be a particular state appear like pleasant, but on the next moment it may change. We can't have any control over that. So we may be like a particular frame, a particular pattern, a particular shape, but on the next moment it has changed the shape, the pattern or frame. So there we get again unsatisfied. So therefore all these impermanent phenomena can't provide us lasting happiness. Since they are subjected to this inconstant nature, very transient nature, so we can't expect to have them a kind of a lasting or everlasting or permanent self, kind of a soul. Cannot exist there because every moment it changes. It's completely momentary process is there. Inconstant, transient nature is there. So therefore we can't expect it to have kind of an ongoing, everlasting, eternal kind of a soul. So therefore Buddha mentioned here, so actually question from monks, so whether these perceptions are permanent or impermanent. Then the monks answered the Buddha telling they are impermanent. And is what is impermanent, suffering or happiness? Then monks answer they are suffering. And is what is impermanent, suffering and subject to change, fit to be regarded thus? This is mine, this is I am, this is myself. Can't. It's not worthy. Because they are changing, they don't belong to me, they have their own agenda, they behave because of various other causes and conditions. Is it worthy of calling them as me or mine or myself? So this is a kind of an argument, kind of a logic Buddha bring forward. And again, perceptions are also subject to various changes. So therefore Buddha mentioned, they also possible to change and they also start to fade away. They also disappear. And again, sometimes they also change to something else. So they also have the nature to change. So we can't wish them to be otherwise. Even though we wish, they don't change. Say for example, we have various titles in the society, various designations. Maybe in a company, there are various positions, various designations. And probably we may be having a kind of an ambition to become someone. If you are in the accounting field, suppose you want to become the chief accountant. So you are aspiring now to be the chief accountant. Now that is the perception available in your mind. So chief accountant. So there's a kind of a norm, a kind of a designation, kind of a convention, kind of a label. But that label has somewhat deeply rooted in the mind and you are targeting that. But if it is belonging to you, you should be able to change it. You should be able to achieve it. But it doesn't do like that. And suppose you lost your job, you lost your designation, you got demoted, but you can't now have it. So all these perceptions, all these notions, all these conventions, in a way, are transient. So even various languages and various words, sounds, all these are subject to these kind of changes. And there are various languages available during the Buddha's time, in the old India, in the old other countries, but now things have changed. So likewise, all these different perceptions are also subject to change. Now, Another side that we can discuss when we are talking about perceptions, actually perceptions are the ones causing various proliferation in our mind. And we fond of thinking. Whenever we recognize something, we like to have a kind of a thought on it. We are adding kind of a thought. Then we add another thought. Then we add another thought. Then the thinking machine starts, and ultimately now we don't need to purposely think, but the mind thinks by itself. Mind has started thinking. Thinking machine has started. Now mind is going on and on, thinking. Now we can't even stop. Now we are in a kind of a driven mode. Now we are like a slave, where the mind is going on and on. Proliferation. There Buddha very beautifully mentioned in this verse in Kalaha Vivada Sutta, all these proliferations have their root as a sanya, as a sign. So in order to recognize that, we have to go backward. So when the mind is proliferating, when the mind is thinking, going on some sort of a storytelling, inner chatter, so we have to wisely go backward and see the root. Yoniso Manasikara has to be used in order to recognize the root or the origin of this thought process. Now, if we are able to look back and trace the root, then most probably we can recognize, so these are the various signs. Say, for example, you are thinking of maybe about your child. So immediately maybe small sign appear in your mind. So you give some value to that sign, you give a name to that sign, and accordingly we start to add a thought onto it. We personify that, we add another thought to it, Likewise, we start to weave the thinking process. Now slowly the thinking process gets its own momentum, and then it is growing. So, but if we look back, the root is a kind of a sign. It's a kind of a mental image even. It may be a kind of a sign that we pick through our eyes. It may be a sign that we pick from various sounds. So likewise, maybe using various faculties, we have taken kind of a sign, kind of a recognition, or even by using the mind, we have taken some sort of a sign. So therefore, assume that you are going on, say, meditation, mindfulness development. Say you assume that you are doing mindfulness on breathing, and now breathing calms down, you are able to maintain your attention on the breath. Breath becomes subtler and subtler. Suppose now breathing almost disappeared. Very much like you can't recognize whether it is in-breath or out-breath. Everything has become very refined. So at this time, sometimes various signs can happen. So kind of an image probably come to the mind. Maybe a Buddha image can come to the mind. Maybe a kind of a celestial being's image can come to a mind. Maybe a passed away relative's image can come to a mind. A pagoda's image can come to a mind. Various images can come to a mind. Sometimes people don't go through it, but to some people, so these kinds of various signs are possible. And sometimes even sounds of sign. The signs of sound also can happen. They feel like, okay, there's a kind of a parita chanting going on. Like someone is murmuring, someone is talking closer to you. Or maybe kind of a melody. So these things can happen while meditating. Especially when your object, the Mula Kamatahana, the primary object calms down. This completely disappear. So these kind of various signs can manifest. So there we have to be careful. So if we give prominence to them, if we give a value to them, and if we start to think about them, then we are starting a proliferation. Then we are going to start that thinking machine again and again. Now the machine has catching the momentum. Now we are in a fantasy. Now we are in a different world. Now we are in an entirely dream world. So we have lost the present moment. So as practitioners, so we need to understand the sort of peril in it, understand the sort of disadvantage here, kind of a danger here. So when we are able to recognize these, when we are not giving prominence to these various signs, so the mind starts to somewhat become spacious. All the signs pertaining to the sights start to disappear, start to fade away. All the signs pertaining to various sounds start to fade away. Now mind becomes fairly clean. Mind becomes very spacious. Unlike before, we are very much like a kind of a congested, but now it is having a lot of space. So therefore Buddha mentioned, so when the mind has this unmanifested kind of a situation, where there are no sounds manifesting, there are no, the signs of sounds manifesting, there are no signs of say sights manifesting, there are no signs of smells, taste, tactile sensations, thoughts manifesting in the mind. So that mind is a kind of a free mind. So that mind is not completely destroyed perception. It has some sort of a perception. It has a kind of a perception, but not the normal perceptions. It doesn't represent, say different colors, say red and white and blue, yellow. So those kind of typical colors, different shapes, say circular, rectangular. So different those kind of shapes. Or your mother, father, sister, brother, children. So those kind of typical signs, maybe politics, different countries, different cities. So none of these typical ordinary kind of signs are not in the mind. Na sanya sanyi, na visanya sanyi. But again, the mind is not kind of fainted, or so you are completely sort of bewildered. So mind has its own kind of a attentiveness is there. Nopi asanyi. And you are not kind of a non-percipient. You are still percipient. Vibhuta sanyi. You have not destroyed the perception. Certain kind of perception is there. Evan sametasa vibhoti rupang sanya nidanahi papancha sanka. So Buddha mentioned, so if you are able to achieve this kind of a level, then the various signs does not manifest in your mind, does not pollute the mind, does not find footing in the mind. Instead, mind has its own freedom. Mind has its own kind of a, say, luminosity. It has its own purity. It hasn't established anywhere. It hasn't established with kind of a sight. It hasn't established with sound, not with smell, not with taste, not with, say, tactile sensation, not with thought, but percipient, but aware, but mindful. So this is a kind of an area that Buddha invites us to explore, and therefore Buddha mentioned, so if one is able to understand the nature of the perceptions, so then one becomes disenchanted on these perceptions. So then he is not giving much value to these perceptions, not considering them as me or mine. So therefore he start to let them go. So mind becomes fairly purified. So when the mind becomes purified, when the mind becomes free, so he very well know now the mind is free. Because previously there were a lot of signs available in the mind, so it is fairly congested, like a mess. But now everything has gone, everything has disappeared. Now the mind is quite spacious, and mind is also founded on wisdom. It is not kind of a dull state, ignorant state, but well grounded with wisdom. So since it is well grounded with wisdom and all the perceptions are neglected or being dispassionate to various signs, perceptions. So those perceptions, signs, marks have gone away. So now the mind is very pure. Now the mind is very clean. So this kind of a clarity of mind, this kind of purity of mind is something that Buddha has appreciated. Buddha has given some value. So this is somewhere that we have to pay attention. And with that, I'd like to conclude today's Dhamma sermon. Now I open the session for questions.
I'm sorry, Bante. Currently, there are 5 questions. Question number 1, general question. Dear Bante, I have noticed that there is a big gap between doing the practice and observing about it in day-to-day life. For example, in the practice, I am able to maintain mindfulness for 1 hour in either walking or sitting. In day-to-day life, I feel that this has helped in the understanding, helped in understanding the situations where I feel sad, angry, happy, etc. When a feeling is arising, I am able to understand that now I am starting to get angry, sad, happy, etc., and not to react or act. I feel that this is because of the practice, where I'm able to identify the thought arising itself, because I make a decision on what to do about it. I also feel that this understanding would not come if not for the practice. No amount of reading or listening to the Dhamma will help me to identify these situations until I practice, and I'm able to calm my mind. Please clarify if this understanding is correct, because I feel that the only way to travel the path is living with this understanding in day-to-day activities, and not only doing the practice every day or going to a retreat. Much merit for your answer. With metta, Thero and Sarana. That's the end of the question.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, as you have mentioned, so we have to maintain that kind of a vigilance in our daily activities. So we have to on guard of our mind. So we have to monitor the mind. So irrespective of what is the activity that we are dealing with. So it is in a way quite difficult. Sometimes we unknowingly get sort of involved in the activity. So at that time we loses our attention to the mind. So we loses the balance. So sometimes therefore mind is too much engaged with the activity. So on that time we can't even observe it. So it get even tensed, stressed. So that can happen. But on the other hand, if we are able to maintain such balance, so then we know, okay, we are planning, I am writing, I am doing some programming, I am doing planning, designing, whatever it is, I am doing various tasks, but I am now mindful. At the same time, I can recognize various likes and dislikes, as you said, arising in the mind. So if we are able to recognize those likes and dislikes, so Buddha recommends us to come back to the middle instead of too much involved in those likes and dislikes. Because if you are able to practice more and more, so you may start to appreciate that middle range instead of in the extremes, either in the pleasurable extreme or the painful extreme. So being in the middle, unassociated state, unattached state, uninvolved state. So you start to have kind of a comfort in this kind of a state of mind. So this is something that we have to practically recognize. How are we going to maintain such kind of a mind while walking? Suppose you are able to have it while sitting. Say you do your own practice. So after you are building up your momentum, after you are building up some amount of wisdom, so mind switch to that unattached nature. Now assume that you are somewhat familiar with that. So if you are familiar with that, are you able to experience the same thing while walking? So this is something we need to test. We need to practice. We need to expand this skill. First, maybe we experience that while in the sitting. Now we should be able to get the same experience while walking. Suppose you are now successful and now you can get it, you can experience it while walking. How about sweeping? Say you do your regular course of the house. So while you are doing that, say, are you able to maintain that? say you are sleeping, that sleeping does not involve a lot of brain power. So can't you have that kind of, say, relaxed mind, unattached mind while sleeping? How about eating? So while eating, can you maintain that sort of a mind? Assume if you are sort of practicing like this, and that actually requires constant vigilance, in a way, constant awareness on your side. It is not kind of a very purposeful, effortful kind of awareness, but kind of a effortless awareness, a very smooth mindfulness, because you feel that the mind has its own freedom, mind has its own kind of calmness, and you simply be with it. Kind of awareness is there. So while you are having it, say if you get kind of, again, if the mind as a result of, say, maybe kind of a tendency, if it is shift to the positive side or to the negative side, so you understand that. If it is go to any of the extremes, you recognize it, understand it, and without too much involved in those, so you are able to again switch or take it back to the middle. Middle is the most comfortable region. So the mind, rather than staying in the sort of the extremely happy state or extremely sad state, so having a kind of a pleasant abiding, neither too much happy, neither unhappy, but in a kind of a pleasant abiding, very soft abiding, neutral kind of an abiding, neutral kind of a dwelling. So if you are able to maintain that, so that is where Buddha sort of recommend, say for example in the Indriya Bhavana Sutta and various other suttas. So Buddha recommend this, where we need to recognize how mind shift to the extremes, and without being on those extremes, come back to the middle. Yeah.
Question number 2 of 5, walking mindfulness. Dear Venerable Bhante, this report is regarding my walking practice. Usually I practice 1 hour per day. I start focusing on the soles of my foot and observe the sensations, noting left and right. After a few minutes, when I clearly start observing the sensations on the sole of my foot, the noting drops off automatically. I can identify how each foot is touching the ground based on the sensations of pressure, first on the heel, then the weight transfer around the sole to the small toe, and then one after the other, all the toes get involved, bearing the weight, transferring to the big toe, which pushes the leg backwards, transferring the weight to the ball of the foot, which continues the push until the other foot touches the ground. During this process, I can identify some small differences between the left and right foot, which gives me indications of this is left or this is right. I can also feel heat and cold sensations in some areas of each foot. After some time, these clear sensations start to fade away, and sometimes I could hardly identify which foot is left or right around 15 minutes. The usual observation during this stage is that the mind starts wandering off, which drifts to different thoughts. I understand from Bhante's question and answer sessions that since the sensations are blurred, the mind usually drifts to various thoughts. I was expecting the mind to drift away at the end of the walking path, and when turning in the midst of varying sensations, but this happens usually at the middle of the walking path, when the process is fairly effortless and relaxed. Therefore, my understanding is this drifting is not due to agitated mind, but due to sluggish or monotony that the mind is experiencing during the middle part of the walking path. Is this the correct understanding, Bhante? With metta, Thero and Saranai, that's the end.
Yeah. So I also think like that. Basically, so as we practice, our understanding grows, and we loses. Basically, we can't then, to some extent, distinguish whether it is painful or whether it is pleasurable or whether this is kind of a different characteristic. Rather, everything appear like a flux. So if we are paying close attention to various element characteristics, so now you can't distinguish whether this is earth element or air element or heat element or like that, but everything appear like flux. Suppose if you are doing say feelings, Vedananupassana. So all the various feelings, now you can't distinguish whether it is a painful feeling or pleasurable feeling or equanimous feeling. Everything appear like a kind of a flux. Everything appear like mostly like say equanimous feeling. So you can't feel much of a difference. Similarly, if you recognize the thoughts, so previously you can surely recognize, okay, this is a lustful thought, this is a angry thought, so likewise. But now they like parts of thoughts, not a complete thought, but kind of a parts of thoughts. So they appear like distant and appear like far from you. They can't come very close to the mind. So they still in the boundary. So likewise, so this kind of a perception happens. But unfortunately, since this is not in a way agitating the mind, so mind starts to sleep. Mind becomes sluggish. Actually, the agitation makes the mind so far awakened, because when our mind gets agitated because of lust, we can't sleep. When our mind gets agitated because of anger, we can't sleep. When our mind gets agitated because of any kind of a doubt, we can't sleep. But now, things, since everything appear like blurred and little far away and not interested, not really charming, so mind loses its interest. There is nothing to agitate the mind. So mind starts to sleep. Mind becomes sluggish. Now actually we don't need to change anything. Rather, we have to practice again and again till we are able to maintain awakefulness even when these external phenomena appear like flux, appear like kind of uninterested, everything like say mixed up, not interesting, not showing their boundaries. And so this kind of environment is there, this kind of perception is there. Even with that, we should be able to maintain awakefulness, should be able to maintain mindfulness. So this actually, there is no change in the practice. It's a matter of developing mindfulness. Suppose you are continuing your practice, in a day you should be able to be fully alert, keeping your mind quite awake without any sluggishness, even when there is no much agitation or kind of say triggering coming from eyes, no triggering or agitation coming from ears, nose, tongue, body or the mind. So everything like very calm, everything becomes quite peaceful, in a way kind of boring. Still mind is awake. So this in a way we have to slowly be familiarized with this state. So our mind is used to be agitated. Actually, that is what we consider as happiness. Say for example, suppose kind of a person who is not practicing, who is not into Dhamma. So he consider more and more watching the movies, more and more say agitating the mind using say watching the movies, watching the say cricket or whatever it is. So he consider that as the happiness. Say listening to various sounds, noise, music, he consider it as happiness. So smells, say taste, tactile sensations, or else thinking, kind of obsession. So he considered that as happiness. So that is why we start to think. Even sometimes we feel that thinking is painful, kind of a burden. We continue to think because we enjoy it. So we are in a way habitually have this wrong perception. But with the practice now we are in a way refining our faculties. Instead of too much agitating our eyes, we are sort of calming them down. Instead of agitating the mind through our ears, we are restraining them. We are restraining tongue, nose, body, mind. So at this level, mind sometimes perceive it like kind of a boring, kind of a monotony. But slowly the mind will recognize the value of it. Mind will recognize this unagitated, calm, peaceful state of mind. Mind will start to recognize and to appreciate. So till that we need to show the path. We need to guide it. We need to sort of slowly put it into that path and let the mind become familiar with it. then slowly it may have its own wisdom. Then we don't need to worry much because mind has understood its value. Yeah.
Question number 3 of 5, 3 of 6, mindful sitting. Dear Bante, when I was in a guided session today, I started getting multiple jerks in my body in various parts. This started when I settled on focusing on the body, and the breath just faded away. Usually fading away if breath happens, and my observation goes to different elemental characteristics of the body. However, today the focus was mainly on the body posture and small vibrations and jerks in the body. I could not pinpoint where they happen, but clearly observed them as vibrations and small shakes and shocks. It happened throughout the 30 minutes until the bell rings. Is this something normal for me to observe, Bante? Since there was nothing else today, I was observing these small vibrations. Gratitude for your valuable service. With metta, that's the end.
Yeah, so actually, like the previous section, so we loses those differences. So as I mentioned in the feelings, so previously we are able to distinguish this is a pleasurable feeling, this is a painful feeling, this is an equanimous feeling. So likewise, we are able to distinguish, but later everything appear like mixed up. So now we can't differentiate. Similarly, we loses the location. So previously we are able to recognize, okay, this sensation is available in our forehead, this sensation available in our shoulders, this sensation available in our arms, this is available in our tummy. So likewise, we are able to give names even to those places, and we start to do like that. But as our practice grow, as our practice refines, so these locations, these names become sort of faded. Now sensations are there, but we can't actually recognize where they are. Say kind of irritation is there. Now you pay your attention. Simply this irritation is there, but you can't recognize where it is exactly. Whether it is on my forehead, whether it is in my chest or tummy or leg or whatever it is, you can't distinguish. So this is all right. Actually, the practice move towards this reducing of perceptions, leaving aside certain perceptions. So that is all right. So this is how it is refining. It's a kind of a simplifying process instead of sort of complicating the process. So the practice helps to simplify the process. Now only you have kind of a process, kind of an ongoing process to recognize, okay, there are certain kind of perceptions are there, or sensations are there, feelings are there, thoughts are there. You don't know where exactly they arise, but you know exactly they are arising. Not the place, but they have the nature to arise. They have the nature to pass away. Now you are sort of removing all unnecessary data, but you are focusing only to the valid data, only to the very essential data, only to the very important data. Now you are keeping kind of principal data you are watching, discarding all unnecessary data, something like that. Yeah.
Question number 4 of 6, I believe. General question. Dear Venerable Sir, regarding sanya, perception proliferation, Bante mentioned that we should recognize the various aspects of this sanya. Is this by actively thinking about this sanya afterwards, or is it something like an understanding or seamless knowledge which comes naturally as a result of continuous practice and enhanced mindfulness? That's the end of the question.
Yeah, actually, we don't need to deliberate thinking. Rather, when this naturally happens, we can recognize. Say, proliferation happens because of, say, you are assume that your mind was calm, and you are doing some walking meditation. Your mind is quite relaxed, calm, but suddenly, suppose you saw something, and immediately that sight being recorded or recognized, and you have assumed that you give some value to it. Now you add a thought to it, you add another thought to it, you add another thought to it. Now you are thinking. Now you loses the mindfulness. Now you start thinking. Now you are not in the present moment. Now you are in the thinking or in the proliferation. Now, so if at this time, if you are able to stop to some level, and if you are able to look back, if you are able to trace back, probably you can understand, okay, my mind was in a very quiet, calm state because I have seen this particular site. Since I have given some value to it, so this proliferation has started. So you could actually trace back. So with experience, you can do it. So likewise, let the mind to play as it likes, then you can trace back and recognize these signs and perceptions. You don't need to deliberately think and do it. Rather, when it is happening, you can trace back and do it. Yeah.
Question number 5 of 6, general question. Dear Venerable Bhante, is it true to say that automatic thought pattern happens by mind when a signal comes is automatic or karmic or no self too? My merits, Bhante. Did you understand the question?
I have some clue. I got some clue. Let's try.
Okay.
So basically, so this may be true to some extent because our mind is used to think. So it is, if something else is not available, so it starts its own thinking, again and again thinking. So this Buddha mentioned, say, suppose you are used to, or you are training the mind to think something bad of a person, something bad, always finding fault with certain person or certain many people. So that is how we have trained the mind. Now everywhere we find fault, everywhere we find mistakes of someone else. So now mind has attuned, mind has trained to think like that. Now you can't say you can't see any person in front of you, but now mind is thinking by on its own. Say someone you have seen somewhere some time ago at some other place. Now he or she is not in front of you, but the mind is thinking because you have trained the mind in a wrong manner to think like that. So finding fault is somewhere that some way that you have trained the mind. So even without that particular person in front of you, mind will start to think like that. So like that, our mind has some sort of an inclination. So if we are thinking too much on the lustful thoughts, at the beginning, say it's a matter of starting the machine. But later you don't need to participate, mind will take care of itself. Now again and again, all the lustful thoughts coming one after the other. Similarly, if you start to find faults on someone, only it's a matter of time. Only at the beginning you need to start. Later, mind will catch all the wrong features, all the mistakes, all the bad things, all the, many things are there. So you guys are, some of you are already married people. I think you already have these experiences. So if you want to find fault with someone, so it's a matter of, say, starting the machine. Later, the machine has its own momentum. Now you can even memorize something happened, say, 20, 50 say, years ago. Even those can come to the mind. So this is how the Buddha mentioned. There's a kind of a nati, kind of an inclination in the mind. So if we start to think in that particular manner, so that is why Buddha asked us to train the other side. Train the mind to think the positive side. Train the mind to think kind of a relinquishment, letting go, kind of helping another person, finding or rather wishing loving kindness. So this kind of shifting has to happen in the mind. So then it may think the positive way. But later Buddha even asked to calm down the mind. So we are replacing bad thinking or bad sankappa, wrong intention with proper intentions. And later we have to calm down that and allow the mind to rest. So likewise, it's a kind of a gradual path is there, training is there.
Question number 6, I believe this is the last one. General question. Dear Venerable Bhante, I have been staying in home and meditating while living a normal, quiet life. Now when I have to meet a friend and talk and entertain others, I do with all my heart. Yet after, I feel so tired and have headaches. It takes a while to recover. When I now go to the office, after coming back from work, I started shivering as if I was going to get a fever, and again very tired and headache. I feel like running away from people and hiding in a forest. Dear Bhante, can you please advise? Greatly appreciated and much merits. That's the end of the question.
Yeah. So actually, you will slowly start to have kind of a resilience. So it, as you said at the beginning, it feels like kind of tiresome to talk someone and to deal with others because it is generating some kind of a stress and kind of an involvement in the mind. Again, mind get agitated and you feel kind of stressed out. You feel really tired. But slowly you are building up kind of a strength in yourself. So the mindfulness growing to a kind of an extent which can bear this kind of situation. You can quickly recover. Say you are talking, you are in a conversation, but later if you want, you understood that now I have to say finish the conversation and keep the mind quiet, you have the capacity to quickly quieten it. If you want to again keep it in a very silent mood, you can quickly come back to that silent mood. So this resilience actually start to develop. So don't be sort of don't worry about it. So this is how actually the mind is growing. So initially you will understand, okay, while I am at home in practicing in a very relaxed manner, so it's kind of very relaxed, calm atmosphere is there. But at the office, you again get agitated, again get sort of upset. All these problems are there. So you need to understand this also. So still my mindfulness is not that strong. It can't bear all these ups and downs. It go and again pick certain things and again start to think. So that is this thinking, this I making, mind making is the one actually causing the suffering, causing the stress. So more you have kind of a steadiness in your mind, so fairly the mindfulness has fairly improved. So there you gain some sort of a capacity to withstand this, to bear it. And even if you're stressed out, you can quickly recover. You can quickly come back to the normalcy. So this is actually growing. So don't worry. So simply continue this process. Let the mind feel sort of tired. Let the mind feel some tensed or stressed out. But after coming back home, you allow the mind to relax. Allow the mind to calm down again boost it up, again be mindful. So likewise, we have to strengthen ourselves. So once we do that, so slowly this steadiness, this calmness, sort of unshakability start to stay with us. So it's a kind of a gradual process. So therefore, don't worry. It's a matter of continuation. Yeah.
That ends our questions for today. I'd like to first thank Bhante for giving up valuable time for this program, and also to pass on our merits, and also to the people seen and unseen helping and also participating in the program. And lastly, to all the participants here, because without you, there would be no program. Thero Sannai.
Thero Sannai, Sukhi Hotu.